class we are going to discuss another very interesting form of protist called slime molds. They are also known as the protistan fungi. Alright, now let us start with their general characteristics. See, for slime molds, their general characteristics includes they are free living, creeping over the debris like fallen leaves on or rotting logs of wood. They have naked protoplasts not covered by any cell wall in vegetative stage. Now, one of the most important feature of slime molds, which I have told you in the beginning of the chapter itself, is how the slime molds can have a peculiar mixture of characteristics between plants and animals. Slime molds are slimy mass of protoplasm which do not bear any cell wall during their vegetative phase. That means when they have started their growth in the primary growth phase, they do not bear any kind of cell wall. Okay, and without cell wall they then behave as animals. But as soon as there is unfavorable condition approaching, during unfavorable condition the slime molds, they now would have to start reproduction. Okay, so during reproductive phase again the slime molds will bear structures called fruiting bodies which will have true cellulosic cell wall. So during reproductive phase then, because of the cell wall, they would be behaving as plants, right? So in that case, slime molds are so peculiar in having this mixture of characteristics. In the vegetative phase, they will behave as animals, they won't have cell wall, and in the reproductive phase, they will behave as plants bearing hard cellulosic cell wall. Understood this? So this is the most important feature of slime molds that you should remember, alright? Now, they lack chlorophyll and have saprobic mode of nutrition. Saprobic mode of nutrition, all of you know that they would be feeding on dead and decayed substances, dead and decayed particles, alright? And because they don't have any chlorophyll, of course then they cannot photosynthesize or manufacture their food by themselves. The body moves along decaying twigs and leaves engulfing organic material. Because they feed on the dead and decayed particles, they would be mostly found in the soil, in moist soil, where there will be a lot of organic matter present or decaying substances present. Under favorable condition, they form an aggregation called plasmodium which may grow and spread over several feet. During unfavorable condition, it forms fruiting bodies bearing spores at its tips. So now, as I have told you already, slime molds during favorable condition, they will behave as a mass of protoplasm, just like an amoeba, isn't it? Amoeba is also an asymmetrical mass of protoplasm, isn't it? But then the difference is that in case of slime molds, we will call this mass of protoplasm to be plasmodium. Okay, and it will be multinucleate. Alright, so during favorable condition, the slime mold or the plasmodium, it will keep on spreading up to several of feet in the substratum, mostly the soil, which contains a lot of decayed particles. But as soon as there is unfavorable condition, you know very well that they now have to start reproduction, isn't it? So during reproduction, they will now start bearing some fruiting bodies, okay, with spores at their tips. Okay, so what you need to remember, during favorable condition, they will behave as a mass of protoplasm with multinucleate state, and they might sometimes spread up to several feet at that time. But during unfavorable condition, they will now start behaving or start bearing fruiting bodies with spores at their tips. These spores will have hard cellulosic cell wall. Alright? Now, their vegetative phase resembles animals and reproductive phase resembles plants. Of course, because vegetative phase there is no cell wall, so it's like animals, and reproductive phase bears hard cellulosic cell wall, true cell wall, so it will behave as plants. Alright, this is the most important feature. Even if you sometimes forget certain other features, but this feature is very, very, very important. That slime molds, they are a mixture of characteristics between plants and animals. Why? Because they in the reproductive phase behave as plants, and in the vegetative phase they do not have cell wall, so they behave as animals. Is that clear? Now, spores are extremely resistant and survives for many years. and gets dispersed by air currents. So during reproductive phase, when the slime molds will be bearing spores, these spores will be very resistant. During unfavorable condition or any kind of harsh conditions, they can easily survive for several years, okay, and they will be spread via air currents. Alright. Last, reproduction. Reproduction will be occurring both asexually and sexually. Fine. Is that clear? Now for exam, mostly for your exam, this is something of a highlighting point that you should remember. See, slime mold act as a connecting link between plants, animals and fungi. Why? Because slime molds will show a few characteristics like plants, few characteristics like animals, and of course few characteristics like fungi. That's why they are also called protist-ton fungi. Alright. So see here, fungi-like feature of slime mold is that formation of fruiting bodies. Just like fungi, even the slime molds will bear fruiting bodies for reproduction. That is their most appropriate or resembling feature with the fungi. Likewise, plant-like feature is cell wall, cellulosic cell wall around the spores, right? And finally, animal-like feature is plasmodium is without cell wall. That means during vegetative phase, when the slime mold will remain like a protoplasm, mass of protoplasm, that is plasmodium, the plasmodium won't have any cell wall, just like animals. So this is a very important part for you to remember. Alright. Now let us move on to types of slime molds. Alright. There are two types of slime molds. One is acellular or plasmodium. Another is cellular or pseudoplasmodium. Okay, so we will be discussing their life cycle along with some important examples that you should remember. Okay, so let's start with acellular slime mold or plasmodium's life cycle. Now, see, acellular slime mold or plasmodium, it is a slime mold which has an asymmetrical structure. Okay, when it is a young plasmodium, P here is plasmodium, so that it does not look messy, I have written here as P, young plasmodium. See, young plasmodium is an asymmetrical structure just like a amoeba, but it has various nuclei. See, it is multinucleate, okay, and all the nucleus are having two sets of chromosomes. So all the nucleus are diploid, okay, it's a diploid structure after all. Eventually, as favorable condition will keep going on and the plasmodium will keep on feeding up on dead and decayed particles, it will grow and it will spread up to several of feet. It will become enlarged. Okay, but now suppose unfavorable condition. Unfavorable condition starts. Unfavorable condition as in lack of food or lack of nutrients in their substratum where they are living. There suppose food has become scarce. So at that time, during unfavorable condition, as you know, the plasmodium will now start bearing certain fruiting body-like structures. So this is the beginning of fruiting body. Okay. So up till this also everything is twice and diploid. Okay, so now that unfavorable condition or lack of food has started in their surrounding, they have started to form fruiting body-like structures. Eventually, you can see this is proper fructification formed. This is the final fruiting body that has been developed. The fruiting body is known as sporocarp. Okay, what is it known as? Sporocarp. Now, sporocarp has two parts. This is the stalk. This is the stalk and this is the sporangium. Okay, it is the sporangium. Inside the sporangium will remain hard cellulosic spores. Okay, the spores will be born inside this sporangium. Now do remember the outer wall of the sporangium in case of plasmodium is known as peridium And also inside the peridium or inside the sporangium remains certain interconnected network of cytoplasm that is known as capillitium. Okay, clear? So in that case, the plasmodium during unfavorable condition will bear some fruiting bodies called sporocarp. Sporocarp will have a stalk and a sporangium inside which will remain hard cellulosic cell-walled spores. Okay, the spores are going to be borne by meiosis. This is very, very important. The spores that will be developed inside the sporangium, they are going to be haploid. Why? Because they will be borne by meiosis. Okay, so by meiosis, haploid spores will be formed. These spores will also be double walled and their outer wall will show various types of sculpturings, okay, various types of spike-like structures or certain kind of patterns or designs, alright. So the spore is going to be borne by meiosis, and that's why suddenly now from diploid you can see the structure has become haploid, alright. Now eventually the spores will germinate. When the spores will germinate, just like seeds germinate to give rise to a plant, isn't it? Likewise, the spores will also germinate, giving rise to two types of structures. Few spores will germinate, giving rise to these small amoeba-like structures called mixed amoeba, and a few of the spores will germinate, giving rise to these flagellated structures called swarm cells. Alright? Now, the mixed amoeba and swarm cells, after they have been properly formed, do remember they both are haploid. Okay, they both are haploid. Now, these cells will behave as gametes. So, they will now start fusing with one another. So, do remember, one mixed amoeba will fuse with another mixed amoeba only. It will never fuse with swarm cell. Likewise, one swarm cell will only fuse with another swarm cell. It will never fuse with mixed amoeba. Alright. So such type of gametic fusion is called isogamy. It's called isogamy. Means only similar types of gametes fuse with one another. That's called isogamy. So see here, gametic fusion is taking place. One swarm cell is fusing with another. One mixed amoeba is fusing with another. Okay. So gametic fusion has occurred. And due to gametic fusion, finally the resultant is a zygote. And the zygote is again 2n. So this is one n, this is another n. So when they both will fuse, it will be 2n. So the zygote is going to be twice n, diploid. Alright. Finally, the zygote will start growing and developing into a plasmodium again. That's how the completion of life cycle will take place. I hope you are clear. So let's revise it quickly. See here. Plasmodium or acellular slime mold is a amoeba-like asymmetrical structure which has multinucleate core. Okay, it's a diploid structure. During favorable condition, it will keep on feeding on decayed particles and it will become large. Okay, it will spread over several feet. Now suddenly when it will be facing unfavorable condition, that is lack of food, during that time the plasmodium will start forming fruiting bodies. Okay, the fruiting bodies when finally appears, it looks like this. It is called sporocarp with a stalk and a head. The head is called sporangium. Inside the sporangium remains haploid spores. Okay, how haploid spores are born? By meiosis. And these spores will have cellulosic cell wall. Alright. Now, once the spores are released from the sporangium, they will start germinating during favorable condition. So, when they start germinating, we will see that few of the spores will give rise to mixed amoeba cells on germination and few of the spores will give rise to swarm cells on germination. Alright. Finally, the fusion of the gametes, these cells are now going to act as gametes. So the fusion of gametes is isogamous, means one mixed amoeba fuses with another, one swarm cell fuses with another swarm cell. They are not going to fuse with some dissimilar structure. They will always fuse with similar structures. That's called isogamy. Alright, similar gametic fusion. Alright. Now, Finally, when the gametes have fused together successfully, the resultant is going to be a diploid zygote. Alright, and zygote after formation will eventually develop into a plasmodium again. So the life cycle will repeat itself. Alright, so this is the entire life cycle of acellular slime mold or plasmodium. Is that clear? Fine. So important examples are Physarum, Physarella, Fuligo. Do you remember the spores of Fuligo or Fuligo septica, to be most specific? Fuligo septica is going to be numerous. It is going to release spores in large quantity, and those spores, if inhaled, will cause severe allergic reactions in human. Alright. So now let's move on to the next life cycle, that is cellular slime mold or pseudoplasmodium. Alright. So let's see. See, pseudoplasmodium or cellular slime mold, unlike the plasmodium, is going to be a haploid structure. It's not diploid, it's haploid. See? And it is basically a structure that's formed by the fusion of many mixed amoeba cells. See, these were the mixed amoeba cells, isn't it? Mixed amoeba, that this same mixed amoeba cells, if I tell you that many mixed amoeba will remain sticking to one another in the form of a colony. Can you imagine how it will look? Won't it look like this? Right? So many mixed amoeba haploid cells, when remains together in the form of a colony, that's what is known as cellular slime mold or pseudoplasmodium. Okay. Now, pseudoplasmodium, once unfavorable condition begins, it will also start to constrict itself. It will now start confining itself. It will not spread, rather it will become confined. And once it becomes confined, see, eventually it is going to give rise to a fruiting body, that's also known as sporocarp. Okay, it is also known as sporocarp. Now, sporocarp, when fully developed, it is going to bear a stalk and sporangium, okay, as usual. And the sporangium will bear numerous spores, alright. The spore is going to be also haploid, and the spore here would be formed, that the spore that will be formed will also be possessing hard cellulosic cell wall, okay. The spores that are going to be born are also going to be having cellulosic cell wall. That's going to remain common. Okay. Now finally see, during favorable condition, the spores will start to germinate, and this time when the spores will germinate, all the spores will give rise to only one thing, that is mixed amoeba. In cellular slime mold or pseudoplasmodium, swarm cells are not born, only mixed amoeba cells are born. Okay. So all the spores released will give rise to mixed amoeba cells on germination. So finally the mixed amoeba cells, they will start to feed on the decayed particles in the substratum, and they will start multiplying. They will continuously divide and multiply and increase in number, but eventually they will start releasing certain chemicals called cyclic AMP and ecracin. When the cells will start releasing these chemicals, they will start moving towards each other, and they will now start forming a colony. And that colony is going to be again giving rise to another pseudoplasmodium. Okay, so this life cycle is much more simple. Pseudoplasmodium is actually also known as colonial slime molds because they are a colony of mixed amoeba cells. Okay. So a colony of mixed amoeba cells will start to grow, and eventually during unfavorable condition they will start giving rise to a fruiting body like structure called sporocarp. Sporocarp will have a stalk and a sporangium. The sporangium will bear various haploid spores. Okay? The spores on germination will give rise to only one type of cell, that is mixed amoeba cells. The mixed amoeba cells on release will start to multiply, and it will remain individually for a while, but eventually they themselves will start releasing certain chemicals called cyclic AMP or ecracin, and as soon as that happens, they will start moving towards each other so that they can again form a colony, and that colony will be again called as a pseudoplasmodium or cellular slime molds. Okay. So see, one very important thing you have to remember about pseudoplasmodium is that in pseudoplasmodium, many cells are remaining together, isn't it? Just like in a multicellular organism, there are many cells. Here also, many cells are together, and these cells, they also show division of labor. How? During sporocarp formation, few of the cells will give rise to sporangium, and a few of the cells will give rise to spores, as if they are dividing the labor among themselves. Few cells are behaving or giving rise to the fruiting body, and few cells are giving rise to the spores. So aren't they kind of showing a division of labor? Isn't it? So because this is the most primitive example of division of labor seen in any organism. Okay, before cellular slime mold, such kind of division of labor was not seen in any other organism. That's why cellular slime molds are also known as the advanced protist or primitive fungi. Okay, as if they are advanced than the protist, but yes, they are less advanced than fungi. So they are primitive fungi or they are advanced protist. Also, alright, and also because the slime molds are going to, and also because the mixed amoeba are going to remain in the form of a colony, they are also called communal slime molds. I hope all of you are clear about it. So important examples are, see, Dictyostelium and Polyspondylium. These are the examples of cellular slime mold. Okay. Plasmodium or acellular slime mold is diploid, whereas cellular or pseudoplasmodium is haploid. That's the first and foremost difference you should remember. Okay. So I hope all of you are clear about it. So that's it regarding slime molds. Now next let us discuss protozoans, the protistine animals. Now let us see the protozoans. Okay. The protozoans are the primitive or protistine animals. Okay. Because they are all heterotrophic. Because of their mode of nutrition, we can compare them or correlate them with the animals. Now, basically from protozoan sections, not much of questions have been asked in NEET. That's why we are not going into much of details in this section. But whatever has been marked here, they are very important for you to remember. Okay, so let's start. They are unicellular organisms with heterotrophic nutrition. That's why they are referred as primitive animals and can be of 4 types. Now these 4 types of protozoans, they are mostly based on their locomotion. On the basis of their locomotion, they are of 4 types. Alright. So see here. First is amoeboid protozoans. Amoeboid protozoans, they are correlated with amoeba because of their mode of locomotion being pseudopodia or false feet. Okay. So few of their general and important characteristics are, first, habitat and habit, that is freshwater, seawater or moist soil, mostly free living, and a few may be parasitic. Okay. Likewise, the locomotory structure, as I have already told you, it will be pseudopodia or false feet. That's why amoeboid protozoans. Okay. Spatial features, silica shells in some forms, some marine forms would be possessing silica shells, like there are radiolarians, foraminiferans, etc. Alright. Next, examples and diseases caused. The most ideal example of amoeboid protozoans, which all of you know, is amoeba. Okay, amoeba mostly you have learned while you have learned regarding binary fission, the most common type of asexual mode of reproduction, isn't it? So amoeba is the non-parasitic, ideal, organism under amoeboid protozoans, and another parasitic form is entamoeba, which causes amoebic dysentery. All right. So this being said about the amoeboid protozoans, next is flagellated protozoans. So as the name itself suggests, they are going to possess flagella for locomotion. Alright, so see here, they are free living, aquatic or parasitic. Few forms are also parasitic here. The locomotory structure will be, of course, flagella, and for spatial features, they possess some rare sexual reproduction with diverse type of association, like symbiotic forms are present, parasitic forms are present, and the most important example will be trypanosoma. Trypanosoma gambianci, it causes a disease called sleeping sickness. Okay, here the parasite will enter the body and directly will attack, or it will invade the central nervous system, leading to unconsciousness or sleepiness. That's why sleeping sickness. All right. Now, moving to the next part, that is ciliated protozoans. Again, from the name itself, you know the locomotory appendages will be cilia. Cilia being the fastest mode of locomotion among protists. Alright. Now, spatial features include freshwater or marine habitat, and they are going to be most, or rather few forms are going to be parasitic. Locomotory structure will be cilia as usual, and then there will be some spatial features present, that is possesses definite region of injection and ejection. That means just like higher organisms, in case of ciliated protozoans, there will be a specific cavity present in the body through which they can ingest the food, they can take in the food, and also there will be a specific cavity present in the body through which they would release the waste products. Okay, so that's what is a very special feature of ciliated protozoans, and also a very advanced feature. Okay, they possess definite region for injection and ejection of waste materials. Alright, and the lastly example, that is paramecium. Paramecium is a very important example under the ciliated protozoans, which we'll also be discussing in details after this topic, okay, under this section. Alright, next, sporozoans. Sporozoans being the last category, here any as such locomotory appendages are not present. Locomotory appendages, here was pseudopodia, here flagella, here cilia, here absent. Locomotory appendages absent. Alright, so spatial features are, they are all endoparasite. There is no other kind of habitat or any other nature found in the sporozoans. All of them will be found inside the body of a host. That's why they are all endo. Endoparasite means they are parasitic, they will cause disease, and they are always found inside the body of an organism. The parasites can be ectoparasite also. Ectoparasite means parasites which will be found outside the body but on the surface of the body of the host. Like in case of human, lice is an example of ectoparasite. But then in case of sporozoans, all are endoparasites. They are parasitic and will be found inside the body of the host. Locomotory appendage, as I have told you already, will be absent. And spatial feature is that infectious spore-like stage is present in the life cycle. Alright, important example is Plasmodium, the malarial parasite. The malaria causing organism is Plasmodium, and it is under sporozoans. Alright, so this is the basic feature that you should remember regarding the protozoans, the four category of protozoans. Now let us discuss the structure of paramecium, as it is also provided in your NCERT book. That's why studying the structure of paramecium may be important for your exam. So that's why let us start studying the structure of paramecium, which is commonly known as the slipper organism. Okay, it is commonly known as slipper organism. Why? Of course, because from the diagram I think all of you can understand that it looks like the sole of a slipper, isn't it? That's why we call it the slipper organism. Fine. So let us see the structure of paramecium. See, paramecium is a structure or is a unicellular organism under the ciliated protozoans. It do not bear any cell wall. The outermost covering of the cell consists of a flexible pellicle cell wall is absent, rather a flexible membranous structure is present surrounding the cell. That's called pellicle. Okay. Now, other than that, you can see all surrounding the pellicle remain these hair-like structures. These structures are called the locomotory appendage cilia. Alright, this entirely from the cell would arise throughout cilia. Okay, so at this posterior end, you can see a few cilia are little bit enlarged. This together, this cluster of cilia which are found at the posterior end of the cell and are a little larger than the rest, they are known as caudal tuft. Caudal tuft helps the cell to take a desired direction of movement. Alright. Now, next, finally, when we enter the cell, we can see that the cytoplasm is divided into two parts: the outer part and the inner part. The red colored mark you can see, this is the outer part of the cytoplasm, that's called ectoplasm, and inside is the endoplasm. Okay, so ectoplasm is completely embedded with this red colored marked things. These are some sharp and needle-like structures which surrounds which remains embedded in the entire ectoplasm, and this red colored structure which are sharp and needle-like are actually structures as defense mechanism to the paramecium. These are called trichocysts. Trichocysts act as defense mechanism to the paramecium. Okay, whenever the paramecium in its surroundings will be feeling threatened, in that case automatically the trichocyst will be released from the cell. Okay. Now, further you can see this is the cavity through which the food will enter inside the cell. So it is divided into various compartments, or various parts are defined here, like this portion, that is the first one. As the food enters, we call it the oral cavity, or we can also call it peristome. Then next to it remains the vestibule. Alright, then further we enter inside a narrow canal which is marked by the buccal cavity. Then we have this mouth-like opening. This opening is called cytostome, followed by a much narrower neck-like region that's called cytopharynx. And finally, the cytopharynx is going to open into a food vacuole. This is a food vacuole being formed. Food vacuole forming. Alright. So peristome, vestibule, buccal cavity, cytostome, cytopharynx, and then food vacuole forming. That's a very, very important thing for you to remember, the sequence. Alright. Now, next to the food vacuole, here you can see another cavity in the pellicle, isn't it? This cavity is called cytopike. Cytopike is the part, or is the cavity through which waste materials or excreta is released from the cells. As I have already told you that in case of ciliated protozoan, it's a special feature that they possess definite region for ingestion and egestion. So ingestion is happening here via cytostome, whereas the release of waste material is happening via the cytopike. Alright. Now, further you can see these two flower-like structures, isn't it? In the anterior as well as posterior end of the cells. These are the contractile vacuole. Both are contractile vacuoles. Now, what is the basic function of contractile vacuole? Contractile vacuole, they are mostly found in freshwater inhabitants, and they will, whenever excess water will enter inside the cell, okay, in freshwater habitats, water has a tendency to get inside the cell. So that excess water has to be immediately released out of the cell, so that every metabolic machinery or every kind of mechanism inside the cells can go on without any disturbances. So this excess water is released out via the contractile vacuole. So in short, we cannot be telling the whole thing, right, whenever asked that what is the function of contractile vacuole. So in short, we say that contractile vacuole helps to maintain osmoregulation inside the cell, or to maintain salt-water balance inside the cell. Alright. Now, at last, we have these two structures that are left to be discussed. This is a kidney or bean-shaped nucleus, which we call as macronucleus. And this smaller circular one, this is a micronucleus. Alright, macronucleus will control vegetative activity in the cell, whereas micronucleus will be controlling reproductive activities of the cell. So we also call macronucleus to be vegetative nucleus, whereas micronucleus to be reproductive nucleus. Alright, so this is all about the structure of paramecium. I hope all of you are clear about it. In the next class, we'll start with fungi, kingdom fungi.